For 6 weeks, 9-year-old Emma begged her mother Jennifer not to go to the annual religious camp of Pastor David, a man beloved by all 47 families in the Cedar Falls community. The girl cried every night before the meetings, but refused to explain why. When Jennifer finally decides to follow the pastor to the secluded cabin in the mountains, what she learns about the secret activities with the children makes her blood run cold. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back a few weeks. Jennifer Parker was 38 years old and worked as a nurse at Cedar Falls Memorial Hospital. She had been a single mother since her divorce 3 years ago and dedicated every spare minute to her only daughter, Emma. The girl has always been cheerful and confident since she was little. He had bright brown eyes and a smile that lit up any room. At the age of 9, she loved to participate in church activities, especially the children's choir, where she sang enthusiastically every Sunday. Pastor David Mitchell had run Community Faith Church for 12 years. He was considered a pillar of the community, respected by all the residents of Cedar Falls. He was 45 years old, with grey hair on his temples and a warm smile that instantly won people's trust. He organized picnics, camps, and special activities that made the children love attending church. Jennifer trusted him completely, as did all the other mothers in the congregation. In this video, you will discover how a mother trusted her maternal instinct, even when everyone said she was exaggerating. You'll see how small signs that most would ignore became the key to saving your daughter and other children from a disturbing truth hidden behind smiles and prayers. Courage and determination can change everything in a matter of hours. Every detail here is based on true events that shocked an entire community in rural Ohio. If you've come this far, it's because real history interests you. Help this content reach more people, leave the like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. Jennifer and Emma lived in a cozy house at 324 Maple Street, a quiet street with centuries-old trees and manicured gardens typical of the American suburbs. Every Sunday morning, they followed the same routine that had become sacred to both of them. Jennifer would wake up at 7:30 and prepare pancakes with maple syrup, while Emma chose the dress she would wear to the service. The girl always made a point of wearing her best clothes to church. She said that it was important to be beautiful in the house of God. The journey to Community Faith Church took only 10 minutes by car. Emma spent the entire way singing the songs she would learn in the choir that day. Jennifer looked in the rearview mirror and felt her heart warm to see her daughter so happy, so innocent, so full of life. The church stood in the center of Cedar Falls, a white wooden building with a bell tower that could be seen from anywhere in the city. It had been built in 1952 and carried decades of history and tradition. Pastor David was always at the entrance greeting each family that arrived. He shook hands with men, hugged women, and bent down to the children's level to talk, looking into their eyes. With Emma, he had special attention. I always commented on how beautiful she sang and how God had wonderful plans for that very special girl. Jennifer felt grateful to have such a dedicated and caring spiritual leader with her daughter. Emma had been part of the youth group for 2 years, since she turned 7. There were meetings every Wednesday night where the children learned Bible stories, played and did group activities. Pastor David personally coordinated these meetings along with 2 volunteers from the church. Emma always came home excited, telling about the games, the lessons, and her friends. He had a colorful notebook where he drew the parables he learned. Jennifer kept each drawing fondly. The routine was so established, so comforting, that Jennifer never questioned anything. Cedar Falls was a small town where everyone knew each other. People left the doors unlocked, trusted their neighbors, and believed that nothing bad could happen there. The church was the heart of the community, the place where families gathered not only to worship, but to strengthen the bonds of friendship and belonging. Pastor David was seen as someone above suspicion, a dedicated man of God who gave up a lucrative career in Chicago to serve that small community. Jennifer watched other mothers chatting animatedly in the church parking lot after services. Susan Miller often praised the pastor, saying that he had saved her marriage with counseling sessions. Rebecca Thompson recounted how the pastor visited her sick mother in the hospital every week for 6 months. Margaret Foster said that her 3 children considered Pastor David a second father. There was not a single dissenting voice. Everyone loved that man. Emma sang in the children's choir that performed twice a month during the main service. He wore a white smock with a blue bow and went on stage with 15 other children. Jennifer always recorded the performances on her cell phone. She saw her daughter singing with her eyes closed and surrendered to music, and felt that she was creating precious memories that would last forever. After the services, Emma would run up to her asking to see the videos. They watched together, laughing and commenting on every detail. Pastor David organized special events throughout the year. There was the spring picnic in Cedar Park, where families would take baskets of food and spend the day outdoors. There was the June party with game stalls and typical foods, and the most anticipated event of all was the annual summer camp in the mountains 2 hours from Cedar Falls. It was an 8-year tradition where the pastor took the children of the youth group for 3 days of outdoor activities, prayers around the campfire, and biblical teachings in the middle of nature. Emma had already attended camp the previous year when she was 8 years old. She came back delighted, talking about the trails, the scary stories they told at night, and the songs around the campfire. He showed dozens of photos on Jennifer's cell phone. There were images of smiling children running through the woods, roasting marshmallows. Pastor David appeared in several of them, always surrounded by groups of children. Everything seemed perfectly normal, perfectly innocent. Jennifer sometimes reflected on how lucky she was. Many single mothers faced immense difficulties in raising their children alone. She had a steady job at the hospital, a paycheck that paid the bills, a comfortable home, and a supportive community. Emma was growing up in a healthy environment, surrounded by good examples and solid Christian values. There was nothing to complain about. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. It was stable. It was safe. But there was something Jennifer didn't realize yet, small details that went unnoticed in the midst of the comfortable routine. The way Emma was sometimes too quiet in the car coming home from church, the way he held the teddy bear tighter on Wednesday nights before youth group meetings, the way her smile faltered for a split second as Pastor David approached to greet her. They were subtle signs, so subtle that they could easily be mistaken for tiredness or childish distraction. Jennifer worked irregular shifts at the hospital. Some weeks I took the morning shift, other times I worked in the afternoon, and occasionally did night shifts. When she had to work at night, Emma stayed with her grandmother Martha, who lived 3 blocks away. The girl loved her grandmother, who always had homemade cookies and stories from the time she was young. It was an arrangement that worked perfectly. Everyone in the family helped each other, and Emma was never alone. At work, Jennifer was known for her dedication and competence. She cared for patients with genuine affection, remembering personal details and asking questions about their families. Her colleagues respected her, and doctors trusted her clinical judgment. She had that special intuition that some nurses develop over the years, the ability to notice when something is wrong with a patient, even before the obvious signs appear. It was an instinct trained by experience, but that same instinct that worked so well in the hospital had not yet fully awakened in relation to her daughter's situation. Jennifer was still immersed in the illusion of safety that Cedar Falls provided. He still believed that he knew everyone around him and that he could trust the institutions that structured the life of the community. The church was sacred, the pastor was infallible, and nothing bad happened in a small town where everyone knew each other. Emma had a school routine parallel to church life. He attended Cedar Falls Elementary School, a public school 10 minutes from home. She was in the 4th year and was a good student, especially in reading and arts. He had three close friends, Lily, Sophie, and Hannah. The four of them were inseparable at recess, always inventing games and sharing silly childhood secrets. Jennifer knew the parents of all of them. They took turns to take and pick up the girls from school. It was another layer of that safety net that surrounded their lives. On Sundays, after lunch, Jennifer and Emma had the habit of watching a movie together. Emma always chose animations or light comedies. They made popcorn and snuggled on the couch under a blanket. They were precious moments of connection that Jennifer treasured deeply. They talked about everything. Emma told about school, friends, games. Jennifer shared stories from the hospital, always adapting the details to her daughter's age. They laughed a lot together. The house on Maple Street was small but cozy. It had 2 bedrooms, a living room that connected to the kitchen, and a backyard where Jennifer grew tomatoes and herbs in the spring. Emma's room had lilac-painted walls filled with drawings she made herself. There was a bookshelf with children's books, a trunk full of toys, and a bed with a star-patterned duvet. It was the girls' safe haven. Jennifer has decorated the house over the 3 years since the divorce. She wanted to create an environment that was all her own, without the painful memories of the failed marriage. He bought new furniture little by little. He painted the walls. He hung pictures and photos of happy moments with Emma. He transformed that house into a real home, a place where they both felt protected and loved. Tuesday nights were special because Jennifer didn't work and Emma didn't have church activities. They had dinner together, talked about the day, and then Emma showered and went to bed. Jennifer read a story before turning off the light. They were always fairy tales or illustrated Bible stories. Emma asked to hear the same story over and over again until she memorized each word. After the goodnight kiss, Jennifer left the door ajar and the hallway light on, because Emma was a little afraid of the dark. Everything seemed so perfect, so organized, so safe. Jennifer felt in control of her own life and her daughter's life. It had a structure, a community, a faith. But I was about to discover that even the most solid structures can hide deep cracks. That blind trust can be dangerous, and that sometimes monsters do not hide in darkness, but disguise themselves as light. Everything changed 6 weeks before the annual summer camp. It was a sunny Sunday in May, and Pastor David made the announcement during the service. He said the camp would take place on July 15th, 16th and 17th in the Hocking Hills, as usual. He spoke enthusiastically about the activities he had planned, the new trails he would explore, and the special lessons he had prepared. He asked parents to fill out the registration form by the end of the month. There were 47 families in the congregation, and he hoped to take at least 25 children. Jennifer looked at Emma sitting next to her, expecting to see her daughter's face light up like the year before. But instead the girl turned pale. Her hands tightened the hem of her dress, and she stared down. Jennifer frowned worriedly. She leaned over and whispered, "It's all right, honey." Emma just nodded without looking up. It was a strange, uncomfortable moment, but it passed quickly. The service continued, and Jennifer tried to ignore that uncomfortable feeling that began to form deep in her chest. In the car returning home, Jennifer tried to talk about the camp. "Aren't you excited this year?" you asked, looking in the rearview mirror. Emma was staring out the window in silence. It took him a few seconds to respond. "I don't know," he murmured. "I'm tired." Jennifer found the answer strange. Emma was never too tired to talk about things that excited her, but he decided not to insist. Sometimes children have bad days, he thought. Tomorrow she will be normal again. But Emma did not return to normal. That night, Jennifer found her sitting on the bed, staring blankly at the colorful camp booklet they had received at church. The brochure showed photos of happy children in the midst of nature. There were images of the main cabin, the trails and the lake where they did water activities. Emma held the paper with both hands, and there were tears running silently down her face. Jennifer felt her heart tighten. She ran to the bed and sat next to her daughter. "Emma, what it was, because she is crying," asked in a soft voice, pulling the girl into a hug. Emma hid her face on her mother's shoulder and sobbed. "I don't want to go, Mom. Please don't make me go." The girl's voice was charged with despair, a genuine fear that Jennifer had never heard before. Why not love what happened? Jennifer pushed Emma away gently so she could look into her eyes. The girl wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "I don't know. I just don't want to go." Jennifer felt a twinge of something she couldn't name. It wasn't just worry, it was a vague and uncomfortable premonition. But last year you loved it, remembered trying to understand. Emma just shook her head. "I'm tired, Mum. I can sleep now." Jennifer helped her daughter change and lie down. She read a story as usual, but Emma barely paid attention. Her distant gaze was hugging the teddy bear. After she turned off the light, Jennifer stood at the door, watching her daughter's small silhouette under the duvet. A subtle but undeniable discomfort began to grow in Jennifer's chest. Something was different. Something was wrong. But what? In the following days, Emma's behavior worsened. She began to make excuses for not going to the youth group meetings. The following Wednesday, he said he had a headache. Jennifer took her temperature. There was no fever. She offered medicine, but Emma insisted that she just wanted to stay at home. Jennifer allowed it, thinking that maybe her daughter needed some quiet time. But deep down, a voice whispered that this was not normal. The following Wednesday, Emma said she had a lot of homework and needed to stay home to finish. Jennifer checked the backpack. There was only a simple math exercise that would take a maximum of 20 minutes. She questioned her daughter, but Emma insisted that she had more tasks than the teacher had given her. Jennifer didn't know if she believed it, but she didn't want to force it either. He called the church and told them that Emma would not be going that night. Behavior in the church has also changed. Emma, who used to run excitedly through the aisles greeting everyone, now hid behind Jennifer. When Pastor David approached to greet her, the girl retreated. The pastor laughed and commented that Emma had been shy lately. Jennifer forced a smile and nodded, but inside she felt that discomfort growing. One Sunday after the service, Pastor David called Jennifer to talk. He had a gentle smile, but there was concern in his eyes. "Jennifer has noticed that Emma is not coming to the youth group meetings. Is everything okay with her?" she asked. Jennifer felt embarrassed. She couldn't explain what was happening because she didn't understand it herself. "I think she's tired of school," she replied vaguely. The pastor nodded understandingly. "I see, but I hope she doesn't miss the camp. She is one of my favorites, you know, so special." The favorite word echoed in Jennifer's mind in a strange way. Why Emma would be the favorite? There were 24 other children in the group. Why that special attention? Jennifer pushed the thought away immediately. She felt guilty for questioning such a dedicated man. He was just being kind. He was showing pastoral care. There was nothing wrong with that. "Thank you, Pastor. I'll talk to her," smiled Jennifer and said goodbye. But that night Jennifer couldn't sleep properly. She tossed and turned in bed, thinking about her favorite word, thinking of Emma's inexplicable fear, thinking of the tears on her daughter's face as she looked at the camp brochure. It didn't make sense. Emma has always loved the church. He always loved the activities. What had changed? Jennifer tried to talk to other mothers. He sought out Susan Miller after the service the following Sunday. "Susan, did you notice something different in the children in the youth group?" asked, trying to appear casual. Susan frowned. "Different as?" "I don't know. Strange behaviors, fears, something." Susan laughed. "Not Jennifer. My son is very excited for the camp. He talks about it every day." "Why?" Jennifer hesitated. "Emma doesn't want to go this year. I don't know why." Susan shrugged. "Oh, children are like that. One time they want one thing, another time they want another. She will overcome." Jennifer nodded but was not convinced. He looked for Rebecca Thompson on the way out. "Rebecca, her son goes to camp." "Of course," Rebecca said. "I wouldn't miss it for anything. Pastor David is a gift from God to this community. He organizes everything with so much care. No one saw any problem. On the contrary, they all praised the pastor and the activities." Jennifer began to feel isolated. Was he seeing problems where none existed? Was she being an overprotective mother? Emma was only 9 years old. Maybe I was just going through a phase. Children are afraid of irrational things sometimes. Maybe that was it. But Jennifer's maternal instinct was not silent. It was the same voice that alerted her in the hospital when a patient was unwell, even with stable vital signs. It was that deep intuition that all mothers have, but that many learn to ignore. Jennifer tried to ignore it too. He tried to rationalize. He tried to trust the judgment of others, but the voice kept whispering that something was deeply wrong. If this revelation is arousing in you a deep curiosity about what really happened, comment right now. I want more stories, and please leave your like on this video. 3 weeks before the camp, everything became even clearer. It was a Tuesday, and Jennifer had time off from the hospital. Emma was at school and would be back at 3 in the afternoon. Jennifer took the opportunity to shop and clean the house. At 2:40, he was waiting at the door of the school along with other parents. When Emma left, she was talking to her friends. It seemed normal. He seemed happy. Jennifer felt a momentary relief. On the way home, Emma told about the science class where they did an experiment with vinegar and bicarbonate. She spoke excitedly about how the mixture bubbled and created foam. Jennifer laughed and asked questions, encouraging her daughter to explain the experiment. It seemed that everything was fine. It seemed that Jennifer had worried for nothing. But when they passed in front of the church on their way home, Emma was completely quiet. Joy disappeared from his face, as if someone had turned off a light. Jennifer looked in the rearview mirror and saw her daughter staring at the church building with an expression that could only be described as fear. Emma realized that her mother was looking and quickly turned her face to the window on the other side. Jennifer felt a shiver down her spine. Arriving home, Jennifer tried a different approach. Instead of asking directly about the church, he decided to ask more subtle questions. While preparing a snack, he began to chat casually. "Emma, you remember last year's camp?" The girl who was taking the school supplies out of her backpack froze for a second. "I remember," he mumbled. "And what you liked the most?" Emma was slow to answer. "From the songs on the bonfire, I think," Jennifer continued, "and activities. There were those special games that Pastor David organized, he remembers." Emma tensed. Jennifer could see her daughter's shoulders stiffening. "Yes," he replied in a low voice. "What were these love games like? They were cool." Emma did not answer. He just took his backpack and said he was going to do his homework in his room. He quickly went upstairs, leaving Jennifer alone in the kitchen with a growing sense of panic. Jennifer climbed up behind her daughter a few minutes later. He knocked on the half-open door of the room. Emma was sitting up in bed with her notebook open, but she wasn't writing. I just stared at the wall. Jennifer came in and sat next to her. "Daughter, what's going on? You can trust me. If something has made you sad or scared, you need to tell me." Emma turned to her mother and for a moment seemed to speak. Her lips parted and there were tears forming in her eyes. But then he shook his head. "It's nothing, Mommy. I just don't want to go to the camp. Please don't force me, please." Her voice broke and Emma began to cry. Jennifer pulled her into a tight embrace. "All right, my love, that's okay. You won't. I promise. You won't." The relief on Emma's face was instant and profound. She hugged her mother with all her strength and whispered, "Thank you, Mom." Jennifer felt the tears wet her own shirt. She hugged her daughter for long minutes, feeling her little body tremble. And at that moment, he was absolutely certain. Something had happened. Something Emma couldn't or didn't feel safe to tell, and Jennifer needed to find out what. That night, Jennifer called the church office. He spoke to Donna, the secretary who had worked there for 15 years. He said that Emma would not participate in the camp because she was having some health problems. Donna seemed genuinely worried. "Oh, no. I hope it's nothing serious. Pastor David will be disappointed. He always talks about how special Emma is." There was that word again. Special. Why Emma was so special to the pastor. Jennifer thanked her and hung up. She sat in the living room with the phone in her hand thinking. The maternal instinct was screaming now. It was no longer a whisper. It was a deafening alarm. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and she needed to protect her daughter. But what to do? How to act? Jennifer had no proof of anything. He had only a premonition and the inexplicable fear of his daughter. If she made baseless accusations, she would be seen as crazy. It could damage an innocent man's reputation. She could be expelled from the community. But what if I did nothing? What if I ignored that instinct and something terrible happened? He would never forgive himself. If you are here so far, it is because this story is moving you. What follows will show the exact moment when everything changed. Therefore, at the end of this video, we will reveal the complete outcome with details that few know. Stay with me until the end. Jennifer spent the night awake. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling while her mind worked frantically. He thought of all the interactions he had witnessed between Pastor David and Emma. She thought about the words he used: favorite, special. They were innocent words. These were words that any pastor would use with the children of the congregation. But there was something about the context that made them disturbing. In the morning, Jennifer was exhausted but determined. He took Emma to school as usual. The girl seemed lighter. He had a smile on his face. The mere fact of knowing that he would not go to camp had lifted a huge weight off his shoulders. Jennifer watched her daughter enter the school and felt her heart tighten. Emma was so small, so vulnerable, so innocent, and Jennifer would do anything to protect her. At work, Jennifer couldn't concentrate. He made small mistakes that he had to correct quickly. A colleague asked if everything was okay. Jennifer said she hadn't slept properly. It was not a lie. During the lunch break, he went to the hospital library and used one of the computers. He started researching. He typed signs of child abuse in the search. The results were devastating. Jennifer read article after article, stories of children who had been abused by authority figures, teachers, coaches, religious leaders. The standards were always the same: special attention, secrets, isolation, manipulation using language of power or spirituality. And the victims were almost always afraid to tell. They felt ashamed, they felt guilty, or they were threatened that something bad would happen if they spoke. Jennifer felt nausea growing. Each description fit perfectly. The pastor's special attention to Emma, the secret games at the camp, the inexplicable fear of the daughter, the tears, the refusal to speak. It all made sense in a horrible and disturbing way. But I still had no proof. There was nothing concrete, only suspicions. Jennifer read about how predators choose their victims. They are looking for vulnerable children, children from single-parent homes, children in need of male attention. Emma fit the profile perfectly. His father had abandoned the family and was barely in touch. Emma missed a father figure, and Pastor David had filled that void with mastery. The more Jennifer read, the more her certainty grew. But fear was also growing. If her suspicions were correct, it meant that her daughter had been the victim of a predator. It meant that she, as a mother, had not noticed. There was no protection. The guilt was overwhelming, but there was no time to sink into it. He needed to act. I needed to be sure, and he needed proof. Jennifer decided she couldn't confront the pastor directly. He would deny everything. He could manipulate the situation. He could even destroy evidence if he knew he was under suspicion. It needed to be more strategic, more careful. He thought about going to the police, but what would he say? That her daughter was afraid to go to a campsite, that a pastor had called the girl special. They would laugh at her. They would say I was exaggerating. Then Jennifer had an idea. If he couldn't confront the pastor and couldn't go to the police, he would go straight to the source. I would go to the camp, not officially. No one could have known she was there. But he would follow the bus to the mountains. He would hide. I would observe. And she would find out for herself what was happening in that secluded hut where the shepherd was taking the children. It was a risky plan. It was even irrational. But Jennifer saw no other option. His maternal instinct was in charge now, and he demanded action. It required protection. It demanded truth. She needed to know. I needed to be sure. And if his suspicions were right, he needed to stop that man before he claimed any more victims. On Friday of this week, Jennifer asked for 3 days off at the hospital. I told the supervisor that I had a family emergency. It wasn't a lie, it wasn't exactly true, but it was accepted without question. Jennifer also talked to her mother and asked her to stay with Emma during the camp weekend. He said he needed to resolve some personal matters. Martha asked no questions. She was always willing to spend time with her granddaughter. Jennifer began to prepare. He bought binoculars at a sporting goods store. He checked the cell phone battery and bought a portable charger. He prepared a backpack with water, snacks and clothes suitable for the forest. He studied the map of the Hocking Hills region where the camp would be held. He memorized the route that the church bus would take. Emma noticed her mother's agitation. "Are you okay?" Mummy asked Thursday night. Jennifer forced a smile. "I'm great, love. Just taking care of a few things." Emma seemed to accept the answer, but there was a questioning look in her eyes. Jennifer kissed her daughter's forehead. "You will spend the weekend at Grandma's house. It's going to be fun." Emma smiled. "I love spending time with Grandma." On Friday night, Jennifer took Emma to Martha's house. Grandma had prepared a special dinner and had rented 2 animated films for them to watch. Emma was excited. Jennifer said goodbye with a hug that was too long. Martha noticed. "It's okay, dear?" she asked, worried. Jennifer nodded. "Yes, it is, Mum. Just take good care of it." "I always take care of Martha," replied with a smile. Jennifer returned home and spent the night reviewing the plan. He tried to sleep a few hours, but sleep did not come. He stared at the ceiling, thinking about all possible scenarios. And if it was wrong? What if it were all an innocent coincidence? What if Pastor David was really just a devoted man, and his suspicions were the product of a paranoid mind? It would be devastating. It would be humiliating. But Jennifer would rather be wrong and embarrassed than be right and do nothing. Saturday dawned clear and sunny. Jennifer dressed in practical clothes, jeans, sneakers, light jacket. He prepared coffee but could barely drink it. Her stomach was churning with anxiety. At 7 in the morning, he took his backpack and left the house. She drove to the church and parked on a side street from where she could see the entrance without being noticed. The church bus was parked in front of the building. It was an old yellow school bus that the congregation had purchased years ago to transport children to activities. Jennifer saw families coming, parents bringing their children with backpacks and sleeping bags. The children were excited, running and screaming. Pastor David was at the door of the bus, greeting each child who entered. Jennifer watched intently. He saw him put his hand on the shoulder of a blonde girl of approximately 8 years old. She saw him bend down to talk to a small boy. She saw him smile, that warm smile that conquered everyone. And he felt angry, a cold and controlled anger. If that man had hurt his daughter, he would pay. It didn't matter how long it took, he would pay. At 8:30, the bus was full. Jennifer counted 23 children. Pastor David got on last and the bus began to move. Jennifer waited until he turned the corner. Then he started the car and started to keep a safe distance. His heart was beating so hard that he could hear the sound in his own ear. His hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel, but the determination was absolute. The trip would take approximately 2 hours. Jennifer kept the bus in sight at all times, but never too close. I couldn't risk being noticed. The road wound through the hills of Ohio, passing through small towns and rural areas. It was a beautiful region of dense forests and gentle mountains. In other circumstances, Jennifer would have enjoyed the scenery. But at that moment, he could only think about what he was about to discover. Nothing in this story happened by chance. What you are discovering here may be the missing piece to understand everything. Stay until the end, because the most surprising moment is yet to come. The bus eventually left the main highway and onto a narrow dirt road that led into the mountains. Jennifer slowed down while keeping more distance now. The road was winding and dusty, surrounded by tall trees that formed a green tunnel. There were few places to hide if the bus driver looked in the rearview mirror. Jennifer needed to be extremely careful. His heart beat out of rhythm and his hands sweated on the steering wheel. After another 20 minutes, the bus stopped in a wide clearing. Jennifer parked about 300 yards back, hiding the car behind a cluster of dense bushes. He took the binoculars and watched. There was an open area where several tents were already set up. It must have been the place that the volunteers had prepared the day before. Further back was a rustic wooden hut with a sloping roof. And even farther away, almost hidden by vegetation, Jennifer managed to glimpse another, smaller building. That must have been the secluded hut Emma had mentioned. The children got off the bus, excitedly running and screaming. Pastor David came down last, along with 2 other adult volunteers Jennifer recognized from the church. They were Mark Peterson, a 50-year-old deacon, and Carol Williams, a Sunday school teacher. Everyone seemed relaxed and happy. The children were divided into groups and began to unload backpacks and sleeping bags from the bus. Jennifer waited. He could not approach now with so many people awake and active. He would have to wait until nightfall, when everyone was busy with other activities. He checked his backpack, had enough water, a few sandwiches, cereal bars. I could wait. She had all the patience in the world when it came to protecting her daughter. The hours passed slowly. Jennifer watched from afar through the binoculars. During the afternoon, the children went on a guided hike. They played group games. They ate sandwiches that the volunteers distributed. Everything seemed perfectly normal, perfectly innocent. Jennifer began to doubt herself again. Had he gone mad? Was she hiding there in the woods, chasing ghosts created by her own paranoia? But then he remembered Emma's face, of tears, of the genuine fear in his daughter's eyes, of the despair in his voice when he begged not to go to the camp. No, it wasn't paranoia, it was maternal instinct, and she would trust him. As the sun began to set, around 7 in the evening, the volunteers lit a large fire in the center of the clearing. The children gathered around, sitting in a circle. Pastor David began to play the guitar, and everyone sang religious songs. Children's voices echoed through the forest, creating an almost magical atmosphere. From a distance, it looked like a scene from a movie, pure, innocent, full of faith and joy. Jennifer kept watching, waiting. At 8 in the evening, the volunteers served dinner. Hot dogs and beans cooked in pots over the campfire. The children ate with a voracious appetite typical of those who spent the day outdoors. After dinner, there were more songs, and Pastor David told a biblical story about David and Goliath. The children listened attentively, laughing at the funny moments and paying serious attention to the dramatic moments. At 9:30, the ritual of preparing for sleep began. Carol took the girls to one of the big tents where they would all sleep together. Mark took the boys to another tent. Pastor David stayed outside, organizing some materials and feeding the fire that would be kept burning during the night. Jennifer saw all of this and felt a twinge of doubt. Maybe there really was nothing wrong. Perhaps Emma had had an irrational fear based on some nightmare or story she had heard from another child. But then something happened. About 30 minutes after everyone had entered the tents, Jennifer saw Pastor David walk to the girls' tent. He went in. He stayed inside for a few minutes. When he left, 2 girls followed him. Even from afar, Jennifer could see that they were small girls, probably between 8 and 10 years old. They had long hair and wore pajamas. The shepherd put his hand on the shoulders of one of them and began to walk towards the secluded hut farther away. Jennifer felt her blood run cold. That was not normal. Why was the pastor taking 2 girls to a secluded hut at 10 o'clock at night? Why alone? Where were the other adults? Carol must have been in the tent with the other girls. Mark was probably watching the boys. The pastor had waited strategically until everyone was occupied. Jennifer got out of the car quietly. He picked up his cell phone, checking that it had a full battery and was in silent mode. He began to walk through the woods toward the secluded cabin. He used his cell phone flashlight at the minimum intensity, just enough not to trip over roots and stones. His heart was beating so hard that he felt the pulse in his temples. His legs trembled, but he kept walking. I needed to see. I needed to know. I needed to be sure. It took him almost 15 minutes to get close to the cabin. It was a small, old wooden building with only a side window and a door in front. There was light on inside, probably from a lamp or lantern. Jennifer crouched up, trying to make as little noise as possible. Every stick that crackled beneath his feet sounded like a shot in the stillness of the night. But he continued. There was no turning back. He reached the side window and positioned himself carefully. The window was ajar. I could hear voices inside. Pastor David's deep voice speaking in a low and soft tone, and children's voices responding timidly. Jennifer stood up slowly until she could peek out the corner of the window. What he saw made his stomach turn. Pastor David was sitting on a wooden bench. The two girls were standing in front of him. He held a tablet in his hands, showing them something on the screen. Jennifer couldn't see exactly what it was, but from the girls' uncomfortable posture and the way one of them bit her lower lip nervously, it was obvious that something was deeply wrong. The pastor spoke softly. Jennifer forced her to listen, trying to pick up the words. "You are special," he said, in that warm voice that Jennifer knew so well. "God chooses only a few children to receive his love in a different way. You were chosen." He reached out and touched the hair of one of the girls, running his fingers through the blonde strands so that there was nothing paternal about it. It was an intimate touch, invasive. The girl cringed slightly but did not move away. She was clearly uncomfortable, but also too confused and scared to react. "This is our secret," continued the pastor, "a sacred secret. If you tell anyone, God will be very sad, and bad things can happen to you and your families. They understand." The girls nodded. They seemed hypnotized by fear and manipulation. That man was using God. He was using their faith as a weapon to keep the silence. Jennifer felt a surge of fury so intense that it almost blinded her, but he forced himself to remain calm. He needed proof. Slowly he lifted his cell phone and began recording through the window. His hands trembled so much that he had difficulty keeping the device steady, but he succeeded. He recorded the pastor touching the girl's hair. He recorded him showing images on the tablet. He recorded the words about sacred secrets and veiled threats. It had everything. He had concrete and irrefutable evidence. After about 2 minutes of recording, Jennifer couldn't take it anymore. "I couldn't just stand there watching while that monster manipulated innocent children. Without thinking about the consequences, without planning the next move, he pushed the door of the cabin hard. The door slammed into the inner wall with a loud bang. Pastor David jumped off the bench and dropped his tablet on the floor. His face went through several expressions in seconds: shock, fear, and then a quick attempt to recompose the mask of calm. "Get your hands off these children now," Jennifer screamed in a voice she didn't recognize as her own. It was a voice charged with anger, protection, and power. The two girls turned around scared, and when they saw Jennifer, they ran towards her crying. Jennifer pulled them behind her, keeping her eyes fixed on the pastor. His whole body trembled, but not from fear. It was pure adrenaline. "Jennifer, what are you doing here?" Pastor David tried to sound calm, but his voice failed. There was panic in his eyes. He bent down to pick up the tablet, but Jennifer was faster. "Don't move," he shouted. "I've already recorded everything. I have proof of everything you did. The police are already on their way." It was a lie. Jennifer had not yet called the police, but I needed to keep it there. I needed to stop him from fleeing or destroying evidence. "You don't understand," he said, changing tactics. He tried to force a paternal smile. "We were just having a special conversation. It is part of the spiritual mentoring program." Jennifer felt nauseous. Spiritual mentoring. What kind of person would use those words to justify what she had just witnessed? "Shut up," he growled. "Don't say anything else." Don't try to manipulate me like you manipulate these children. Jennifer picked up her phone with one hand, keeping the other protectively on the shoulders of the two crying girls, clinging to her waist. He dialed 911, the emergency number. I needed help. It needed authorities, and he needed it now. The call completed and a female voice answered. Emergency 911, what is your location? I'm at the Community Faith Church camp in Hocking Hills. Jennifer spoke quickly but clearly. I need police immediately. I just caught a man abusing minors. I have recordings. He may try to run away. Please send someone quickly. The attendant asked for more details, and Jennifer provided everything she could. Approximate address, description of the location, number of children present. The attendant assured that vehicles were on the way and asked Jennifer to stay on the line. Pastor David overheard the conversation, and his expression changed completely. His face turned pale. His hands trembled. He took a step toward the door, but Jennifer blocked the way. It's not going anywhere, she said in a firm voice. He will stay here and wait for the police to arrive. He will answer for everything he did. He hesitated. For a moment it seemed that he was going to try to force his way. She was stronger than Jennifer, but she had the children behind her, and he knew that any violence would make it even worse for him. Jennifer stood firm at the door. The girls continued to cry softly behind her. "Shh, it's okay now," whispered Jennifer, without taking her eyes off the pastor. "You are safe. He will no longer hurt you. I promise." The words were as much for the girls as they were for herself. He needed to believe that he had arrived in time, that Emma and these girls could still recover. The minutes that followed seemed like hours. Pastor David remained standing in the middle of the hut. He didn't try to speak anymore. He just stared at the ground with trembling hands. Jennifer remained at the door, alert and tense. I heard the voice of the attendant on the cell phone assuring that the police were coming. And finally, after what seemed like years, Jennifer heard the sound of sirens in the distance. The sirens got louder, voices screaming, red and blue lights flashing between the trees. Jennifer felt her legs almost give way in relief, but she held her ground. Two police officers rushed to the hut with guns drawn. "Hands up!" ordered one of them. Pastor David obeyed slowly. He was handcuffed immediately while one of the officers read his rights. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Jennifer left the cabin with the two girls. More police had arrived, paramedics too. A female police officer approached Jennifer with a gentle expression. "You are well?" he asked. Jennifer nodded. "I am. But these girls need attention, and there's 21 more kids in that camp over there. All need to be verified." The police officer immediately called for reinforcements. The camp has turned into controlled chaos. The children were woken up and gathered in the main area. Parents began to be contacted. Carol and Mark were in shock, trying to figure out what was going on. Jennifer gave her full statement to a detective. He showed the recordings of the cell phone. He told about the suspicions, the research, Emma's behavior. The detective listened attentively, taking notes. "The lady was very brave," he said after Jennifer finished, "and very smart in recording. This evidence is crucial." Jennifer just nodded. She didn't feel brave. She felt exhausted and nauseous. But he also felt a grim satisfaction. He had trusted his instincts. He had protected his daughter, and he had saved other children. In the following hours, the truth began to emerge. The researchers interviewed the children carefully and sensitively. Gradually, other victims were identified. In addition to the two girls in the hut, 4 more children revealed that Pastor David had done similar things to them at previous camps. Always using the same manipulation, always talking about being special and chosen by God, always threatening dire consequences if they told. Emma was among the victims. Jennifer learned about it from the detective, who talked to her grandmother Martha and Emma herself the next morning. The girl was finally able to speak. She said that at the previous year's camp, the pastor had taken her to the same hut. He showed images. It touched her hair. He said she was special, and he threatened that if she told, God would punish her mother by making her lose her job and her home. Emma was only 8 years old. She was terrified. I didn't know what to do. So she kept the secret, carrying that terrible weight alone for a whole year. Jennifer cried when she found out. He cried with anger. He cried in pain. He cried with relief. Her daughter had suffered and she didn't notice. But at the same time, she had trusted her instincts when finally the signs appeared. He had acted. He had saved Emma from suffering again. And he had saved other children as well. If you are here, it is because this story deserves to be heard. I believe that what comes next will surprise you even more. Don't leave this video before you find out how it all ended. Pastor David was arrested in the act and taken to the county police station. Initially, he tried to deny everything. He said Jennifer had misinterpreted a legitimate pastoral activity, but when confronted with the recordings, the children's testimonies and the contents of the tablet that was seized, his defense collapsed. The tablet contained hundreds of inappropriate images of children. There were also photos that he had taken himself during previous camps. The evidence was overwhelming. Jennifer returned to Cedar Falls on Sunday afternoon. He drove straight to his mother's house. When she entered, Emma was sitting on the couch watching television. The girl looked at her mother, and her eyes filled with tears. Mom whispered. Jennifer crossed the room in 3 steps and hugged her daughter with all her strength. The two cried together for long minutes. Martha also cried watching the scene from the kitchen door. "My love is over," Jennifer whispered in Emma's ear. "It's over. You are safe now. Mom won't let anyone hurt you ever again." Emma sobbed against her mother's chest. "I was so scared, Mom. He said you were going to lose your job, that God was going to punish us. I didn't know what to do." The girl's voice broke, and Jennifer felt her heart break into 1,000 pieces. "You didn't do anything wrong," Jennifer said firmly, looking into her daughter's eyes. "None of this was his fault. He is the one who is a very bad man. And now he is in prison. It will no longer hurt any child. The police will guarantee this." Emma wiped away her tears. "You saved me, Mom." Jennifer shook her head. "No, daughter. You saved yourself. You showed me that something was wrong. You were brave even though you were afraid. I only paid attention to the signs you gave me." In the following weeks, Cedar Falls was shaken by the news. Pastor David's arrest was all over the local newspapers. The headlines talked about the respected pastor abusing children under the guise of spiritual mentoring. The community was in shock. Many people couldn't believe it. They said there must be a mistake. But as more details came to light, as more victims were identified, denial gave way to painful acceptance of the truth. Community Faith Church has gone through a deep crisis. There were emergency meetings. The Council of Deacons was dissolved. An interim pastor was brought in from another city to take over temporarily. Many families left the congregation unable to continue attending the place where so much pain had been caused. Others were determined to rebuild, ensuring that nothing like this would ever happen again. Jennifer was sought out by several families, some to be thankful for, others to apologize. Susan Miller cried on Jennifer's shoulder, saying she felt guilty for not believing her concerns. Rebecca Thompson admitted that she had put the pastor on a pedestal, ignoring any possibility of human error. Margaret Foster revealed that her eldest daughter had also been a victim, but never had the courage to tell her. The 7 children identified as direct victims began specialized therapy. A child psychologist from Columbus was hired by the church to work with them at no cost to the families. Emma was among them. The first sessions were difficult. The girl had difficulty talking about what happened. She felt ashamed even though she was repeatedly assured that she was not to blame. But little by little it began to open up. He began to process the trauma. She began to understand that she had been manipulated by an adult in a position of power. Jennifer also went to therapy. "I needed to process the guilt I felt for not having realized it sooner." She had to deal with the anger that consumed her. "I needed to learn to balance the necessary vigilance with the possibility of trusting again." The therapist helped her understand that she had done everything right, that he had paid attention to the signs, that he had trusted his instincts, that he had protected his daughter at the crucial moment. Pastor David's case went to trial 8 months later. Jennifer testified. He presented the recordings. He told what he saw in the hut. He stood firm, even when the defense attorney tried to question his motivations and his mental state. Other mothers testified. The child victims gave videotaped testimonies with psychological support, so they did not have to confront the accused directly. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. Guilty on all counts: child abuse, possession of illegal material, manipulation of minors, abuse of authority. Pastor David Mitchell was sentenced to 15 years in prison without the possibility of parole before serving at least 10 years. When the sentence was read, he bowed his head. He showed no remorse, only resignation of those who were finally caught. Jennifer was in the courtroom when the sentence was announced. He took the hand of Emma, who was sitting next to him. The now 10-year-old girl shook her mother's hand back. "It's all right," Mother whispered. "He can't hurt anyone anymore." Jennifer looked at her daughter and saw a force that wasn't there before. Emma still had a long healing road ahead of her, but it was stronger. He was surviving. He was recovering. This story is not for everyone. If you are here, it is because you want to know the truth behind the facts. You are ready for the final reveal. The transformation at Cedar Falls was slow but profound. Community Faith Church has implemented strict new child protection policies. No adult could be alone with a child under any circumstances. All children's activities should have at least 3 adults present. Security cameras were installed in all rooms. Criminal background checks became mandatory for any volunteer working with children. Regular trainings on appropriate boundaries and signs of abuse have been implemented. Other churches in the area followed suit. The case had shocked the entire religious community. Pastors and leaders realized that blind trust was dangerous, that protective structures were needed, that no independent person of how respected was above oversight and accountability. It was a painful but necessary lesson. Jennifer has become an active voice in child protection. She was invited to speak at schools, churches, and parents' groups. He shared his story. He taught about the subtle signs of abuse. She emphasized the importance of trusting maternal instincts. Many mothers came to her after the lectures to share their own concerns about situations that seemed strange. Jennifer encouraged them to investigate, asking questions, to protect their children, even if it meant going against popular opinion. Emma also found her voice. At the age of 12, she participated in a local documentary about child abuse in religious contexts. He spoke with impressive maturity about his experience. He said he wanted other children to know it was safe to tell, that they would be believed, that they were not to blame, that adults who do wrong things always try to blame the children, but that the responsibility was always the adults, never the child's. The relationship between Jennifer and Emma has grown even stronger. There was a deep trust between them. Emma knew she could tell her mother anything. "I knew I would be heard. I knew I would be protected." Jennifer, in turn, learned to balance protection with freedom. "I didn't want Emma to grow up afraid of the world. I wanted her to grow up strong, conscious, and able to protect herself." The other 6 child victims were also in the process of healing. Some recovered faster. Still others struggled with nightmares and anxiety years later. But they all had support, therapy, families who believed in them, and a community that finally understood the gravity of what had happened and was committed to making sure it never happened again. The impact of the case went beyond Cedar Falls. State and even national reports covered the story. It was widely discussed how predators use positions of authority, especially in religious contexts, to access and manipulate children. Experts were interviewed explaining the patterns of behavior, how predators build trust over time, how they choose vulnerable victims, how they use psychological manipulation to keep silent. Jennifer was contacted by national child protection organizations. He shared his story at conferences, helped develop educational materials for parents and educators. She became an advocate for stricter background check laws for people who work with children. His testimony was used in state legislative hearings. But despite all the activism and public recognition, Jennifer never lost focus on what really mattered: your daughter. Emma was, and always would be, his priority. Everything else was the consequence of the primordial desire to protect her, and to ensure that other mothers had the tools and courage to protect their own children. Years later, when Emma was 15, she wrote an essay for the school about courage. He wrote about his mother, about how Jennifer had risked everything to save her, about how a mother who trusts her instincts can change the fate of many lives. The teacher was so moved that she asked permission to share the essay at an educational conference. Emma agreed. And the story of a brave mother and a surviving daughter touched even more people. Before we continue, help bring real stories to those who really care. If you want to be part of this mission, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. Life in Cedar Falls was never the same after that summer. There was a new consciousness in the community, a healthy vigilance. People still trusted each other, but not blindly. Parents asked more questions. They paid more attention. And above all, they listened to their children more carefully. The tragedy had planted seeds of positive change. It was a small consolation in the face of pain, but it was something. Jennifer continued working as a nurse, but she also devoted significant time to volunteer child protection work. She founded a local support group for parents of children who had been abused. The group met once a month at the public library. It was a safe space where parents could share their struggles, exchange resources, support each other. The group grew and eventually expanded to other cities in the region. Emma developed an interest in psychology. She said that when she grew up, she wanted to help children who went through what she went through. I wanted to be a child therapist. Jennifer supported her daughter's dream. She saw in him not only a vocation, but also part of Emma's healing process. Transform pain into purpose. Use experience to help others. It was a powerful path to recovery. The Parker family has become a symbol of resilience in Cedar Falls. But Jennifer always made a point of making it clear that they were not heroines. It was just mother and daughter who survived something terrible, who fought, who refused to be defined by trauma, and who chose to use the experience to create positive change. But above all, they were human, with good days and bad days, with moments of strength and moments of fragility. There were nights when Emma woke up screaming from nightmares. There were days when Jennifer felt the guilt come back suffocating. There were times when they both cried together for no apparent reason, only releasing accumulated emotions. The cure was not linear, it was not fast, it wasn't easy. But it was possible, and they were committed to the process no matter how long it took. Grandmother Martha was a fundamental support, always present, always loving, always offering hugs, homemade cookies, and attentive ears. She also carried guilt. He felt that he should have noticed something when Emma stayed in his house. But Jennifer repeatedly assured her that no one was to blame. The only culprit was the man who had abused his position of trust to hurt children. Jennifer's ex-husband, Ron, tried to reappear in Emma's life when the news became public. She called saying she wanted to be present for her daughter, but Emma would not see him. She said that he was never there when she needed him, and that she didn't want him now just because her story was in the news. Jennifer supported her daughter's decision. Protection also meant protecting Emma from people who wanted to use her story to appear important. Community Faith Church eventually bounced back under new leadership. The new pastor was a woman. Pastor Helen Morrison had 40 years of extensive experience in pastoral counseling and an unwavering commitment to transparency and protection. She worked tirelessly to rebuild trust. to heal wounds, to create an environment where everyone, especially children, felt safe. Some of the families, including Jennifer's, eventually returned to the church. Others don't. And everything was fine. Each family dealt with the trauma in their own way. There was no right or wrong path. There was only the path that worked for each one. Jennifer came back because Emma wanted to. The girl said she didn't want that man to take away her faith as well. He wanted to recover what he had stained. I wanted to sing in the choir again. I wanted to be part of the community again, but on her terms, with clear limits, with awareness, with power, and that's exactly what Jennifer guaranteed. Emma returned to the choir, but Jennifer attended all the rehearsals, not invasively, not in a way that made Emma feel suffocated, but present, vigilante, protective, and Emma appreciated that. She said she felt safe knowing that her mother was always around, that nothing bad could happen while her mother watched her. Time passed. Emma has grown up. The nightmares became less frequent. The smile returned more easily to his face. She made new friends. He participated in school activities. He got good grades. He lived life like any teenager. But there was a difference. A conscience, an inner strength, a refusal to be a victim. She was a survivor. She was a warrior. And he was free. Jennifer has also changed. There was a firmness in her that had not existed before, an irrational confidence in your own instincts, an unwavering commitment to the protection of not only Emma, but all children. She learned that being a mother was not just about loving. It was also fighting. It was defending. It was refusing to accept the unacceptable. It was trusting the inner voice, even when everyone around said you were wrong. And most of all, Jennifer learned that predators don't look like monsters. They look like normal people, respected people, dear people. They build solid reputations specifically to gain access to victims. They use trusted institutions as a shield, and they count on the fact that people don't want to believe that someone so good can be so bad. But Jennifer now knew, and she would never again be deceived by the appearance of kindness. He would always look beyond the surface. I would always ask the hard questions. He would always trust his instincts. The story of Jennifer Parker and Emma Parker has become legendary in Cedar Falls. People talked about them with admiration, with respect, with gratitude, because a mother's courage had saved not only her own daughter, but had changed an entire community. I had created consciousness. It had forced difficult conversations. He had broken the silence that protected predators, and it had proven that when a mother fights for her daughter, mountains can move, truths can be revealed, and justice can be done. Jennifer and Emma's story teaches us something profound about the nature of maternal protection. It is not just about unconditional love, although love is the foundation. It is about active surveillance, courage to question, of strength to face social disapproval when necessary. Jennifer could have ignored her instincts. I could have believed the other mothers when they said I was exaggerating. I could have blindly trusted Pastor David's reputation. But he chose a different path. He chose to trust the inner voice that screamed that something was wrong. This choice saved his daughter, and it saved 10 other children as well. But beyond that, it created waves of change that spread far beyond Cedar Falls. The story was covered by the media. Parents across the state began asking questions about child protection policies in their own churches, schools, and community organizations. Difficult but necessary conversations began to take place in living rooms across the country. How can we protect our children? How we can recognize signs of abuse? How can we create structures that don't rely solely on trust, but include oversight and accountability? Jennifer received hundreds of messages from mothers around the country, some sharing their own stories of suspicions that were not taken seriously, others thanking him for giving voice to something that they also felt but did not know how to express. Many saying that Jennifer's story encouraged them to pay more attention to their own children, asking more questions, to trust your instincts more. The impact was immense and would continue to grow for years. The central message of Jennifer's story is clear and powerful. You're not crazy when you feel like something is wrong. Your maternal instinct exists for deep evolutionary reasons. It was developed over millions of years to protect its children. When that instinct speaks, you should listen, even if everyone around says otherwise, even if it seems irrational, even if it means going against respected people or powerful institutions. Your child's safety is above all else. But history also teaches us about the importance of protective structures. We cannot depend only on individual instincts. We need clear policies, proper supervision, regular training, of transparency, mechanisms that facilitate complaints. The changes implemented at Community Faith Church should be standard in all organizations that work with children. No adult alone with a child. Activities always in open spaces, multiple adults present, security cameras, background check. These are not paranoid measures. These are sensible precautions that protect both children and well-meaning adults. The recovery of the child victims was long but possible. Specialized therapy made a huge difference. Having families who believed in them, who supported them, who assured them that they were not to blame, was fundamental. Emma and the other girls learned that their voice matters, that they have the right to say no, that their bodies and their minds belong to them, that adults who violate these boundaries are always wrong, regardless of who they are or what position they hold. These lessons will go with them for the rest of their lives. Jennifer's legacy of courage extends throughout Cedar Falls and beyond. The city will never be the same again. There is an awareness now, a refusal to accept blindly, a willingness to ask tough questions. And while the way this awareness came about was painful, it is necessary. Every community needs this awakening. Every community needs to understand that predators exist, that they don't look like monsters, that they use respected institutions as camouflage, and that only active vigilance, transparency, and courage can protect the most vulnerable. Today, 3 years after that terrible summer, Emma is 12. He is in the 7th year of school. He plays volleyball in the youth team. She has a solid group of friends. He gets good grades, especially in English and history. He still goes to therapy, but less often now. Nightmares are rare. The smile is genuine. She is happy. Not completely free from the weight of what happened, but not defined by it. It is a survivor, not a victim, and she is growing as a strong, conscious, and compassionate young woman. Jennifer continues to work as a nurse, but he also devotes significant time to child protection activism. He speaks at conferences, trains educators, advises parents, helped draft new state legislation on background checks for people who work with children. His testimony was instrumental in passing stricter laws. And she keeps telling her story whenever she can, because she knows that every time she speaks, she could be saving another child. The other 10 child victims are also on the road to recovery. Some recovered faster than others. Each one processes the trauma in their own way, in their own time. But they all have support. They all have families who believe in them. They all know that they are not alone, and they all learned that speaking the truth, even when it's scary, is the path to freedom and healing. Pastor David is serving his sentence in a state prison. He will be eligible for parole in 10 years, but it is unlikely to be granted. Other prisoners do not treat people convicted of crimes against children well. His life in prison is not easy. And although Jennifer takes no pleasure in his suffering, she takes satisfaction in knowing that he can't hurt anyone else, that he is paying for his crimes, that justice has been done. 2 years later, Emma is 11 years old and recovering well with continuous psychological monitoring. She smiled again and recently started joining a new youth group at a smaller church where Jennifer personally knows all the leaders and the protection policies are strict. The girl learned that her voice matters and that telling the truth, even when it is difficult, is the path to freedom. Jennifer will never again ignore her maternal instincts, and today teaches other mothers about the subtle signs of manipulation and abuse that can go unnoticed. Jennifer Parker's story became known in Cedar Falls and throughout the Ohio region. She has spoken at schools and churches, sharing her experience and encouraging parents to trust their intuitions when something seems wrong. Of the 11 children who were victims of Pastor David, all are receiving proper treatment, and their families have formed a mutual support group where they share the healing process. The community that initially resisted believing the accusations today recognizes that one mother's courage saved dozens of other children who could have been victims in the future. The case completely changed the church's policies. There is now the mandatory rule that no adult can be alone with children without supervision. All activities are held in open spaces with multiple adults present. Security cameras were installed in all rooms. Training on appropriate boundaries is offered regularly to all volunteers. Transparency has replaced blind trust, and while it was painful for the congregation to face the truth, today the church is a safer place for all children. Jennifer learned profound lessons through this devastating experience. She understood that being a mother is not only about loving, it is also about protecting, even when everyone around says that you are exaggerating. He understood that predators often hide behind masks of respect, trust, and religious authority. He learned that institutions can fail to protect the most vulnerable when reputation is placed above safety. And more importantly, he discovered that a minute of courage can change the course of many lives. The message Jennifer carries today for all mothers is clear and powerful. Trust your maternal instinct. It exists for a biological and emotional reason. If your daughter shows inexplicable fear of a person or situation, always investigate, no matter how respected that person is. Believe it when your daughter tells you that something is wrong, even if she can't fully explain it. No office, no religious position, no reputation is above the safety of a child. Mothers were not born to be naive or obedient. They were born to be warriors, protectors, courageous. Emma today says she has the bravest mother in the world, and Jennifer replies that she has the strongest daughter she knows. Together, they proved that motherly love combined with courage can overcome even the darkest secrets hidden in places where only light and protection should exist. This story makes us reflect on how many other children are going through similar situations right now. How many mothers feel that discomfort in their chest, but ignore it for fear of looking crazy or paranoid. How often respected institutions protect predators simply because they don't want to believe that evil can hide behind respectable facades. And more importantly, what each of us can do to create safer communities for all children. If you like this story, surely the next video that is appearing on your screen will thrill you too. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave yours liked, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Share this story with other mums. We never know who might need to hear this message. A big hug, and see you in the next exciting story.